Well, thank you very much, Andreas. I hope you can all hear me, and welcome to our listeners online also. It's a really hard act to follow, all of those really high-level kind of discussions. Confession, I'm not a high-level person, and I'm not a financial expert. But what I've learned over the last 25 years that I've been involved with the LIFE programme is that we simply cannot operate at the scale that we need, the landscape scale, without sufficient financing. So I think the need has been very clearly stated from our three previous wonderful speakers. Andrea told us about the policy framework. It's strong, it's getting stronger, and there are opportunities there to restore biodiversity and reduce carbon emissions at the same time. Laura referred to the jigsaw puzzle with the many pieces that we need to come together with the right fit to accomplish good results. And we heard from our minister that we have some successes, but we still have work to do. Okay, so no one in this room doubts that there is a biodiversity crisis. I think that that's been made very clear. In 2010, Professor Sir John Lawton set out some basic principles for nature recovery. And there were three main things that he talked about. And these have set the principles for nature recovery, certainly in the United Kingdom. The first is bigger. We simply need to move from pilot scale to large scale, landscape scale actions. The second is better. We need to use practice and the latest technology to improve the management and to move habitats back into favourable condition. And we need to be more joined up, not just in our thinking and not just in joined up stakeholders that you're going to hear about, I think, from Emma later on, but actually we need to connect our environments and our habitats and improve the connectivity. So we need to effect nature recovery both at scale and at pace. And how do we do that? We need the financing to do it. So how much financing do we need to make that sea change? Well, I think most people in this room, we're all conservationists, right? We're not financial people. Well, okay, there may be some financial people down here. Okay, and what I know is that if I ask a room full of economists, say 12 economists in a room, you've heard this joke. If you ask them the same question, you'll get 13 different answers. So how much money do we actually need? Well, the Commission recently put out an estimate that we need 48 billion euros per year, every year, to 2030 to meet the requirements of the biodiversity strategy. Obviously, there are other estimates out there, but that is a good estimate. Now, that is just the biodiversity strategy, does not take into account the nature restoration regulation. And in the roadmap to biodiversity credits that Andrea referred to earlier, there is a figure in there that talks about 65 billion per year, which obviously takes into account these new initiatives. So, and globally, the figure is much bigger. It's around 200 billion, give or take a few billion. So, how are we doing? Well, the estimated public financing in Europe is 29 billion per year. So we've got a funding gap of around 19 billion. How are we going to fill it? Is there enough potential in the private sector to finance that gap? Well, potentially the answer is yes. In the UK alone, there's an estimated £190 billion of private capital expected to be invested in the next 2 to 3 years. Where's it going? It's going to AI, it's going to life sciences, and it's going to defence. And I'm sure that that is a picture that we are seeing reflected across many of the member states as well. So how do we grab and harness a bigger proportion of that private financing for nature? Okay, there's a growing number of examples demonstrating there's a clear link between nature and financial risk. So nature kind of adverse decisions that are being made by companies have led to significant losses, such as falls in market capital, credit rating downgrades, and reputational risks. My own personal favourite is the example of Tesla, and they've lost approaching 50 billion just due to consumer discretion over the last 12 months. If they can lose 50 billion, I'm sure that they can make much better contributions to nature. Could I please have my slide? Okay, first slide of the day coming up. Here we go. So in the financial session this afternoon, we're going to be exploring a little bit more around this, more around this map. These are the opportunities. Andrea was talking about opportunities. These are the opportunities that we may have. Now, this is an interactive map that our wonderful colleagues in Latvia Nature have put together for us. I think I would like to go, where can I go? Is it interactive now? Can I go to EU at the bottom? Can we press on that and see what happens? There we go. So we've already got some contributions from the community, you. We'd like to get some more. So if you'd like to add to our map, please go and see, I'm not sure who, is it? There we go, at the back, right? Please go see my colleague over there, and she will continue to put stuff on this interactive map so we can see how things progress during the day. So over on the far side, which is, get this right, your left, my right, we've got the public financing. This is where a lot of our financing already comes from. On the right-hand side of the map, we've got maybe the easier wins for private financing, donations. I was talking to our colleague from RSPB earlier. I said, where does your money come from then? And she said, well, donations, memberships, all on that kind of right-hand side, and a little bit on the left-hand side. The big bit in the middle, which is around blended financing, which is the terminology that the financiers use, that we are all going to have to start learning, is the hard nut to crack, because they talk in big terms. If you think a project of 5 million is a big project, like under our LIFE programs, that's not big enough for these guys. They're talking about investments of 100 million. And what do we need for these schemes to be effective? What's important about them? Investors in this middle space of blended finance, they need to have their investments de-risked. That's why it's blended finance. That's what governments are there to do, is to de-risk some of these investments. They need a return on their capital. So it needs to be profitable. How do we make nature profitable? And there are ways and means. I'll just talk about that in a minute, very briefly. And from our perspective, what do we want as conservationists? We want to ensure that we're not greenwashing, that we are ensuring that the monies that we get in are going to go to restoration and habitat protection. So there is a very different community out there. We speak one language in terms of investment, and investors speak another language, and we're going to have to learn each other's language. And sometimes, just like in international conferences, we may need some interpretation as well. So, what can we learn? So I'm going to focus a little bit more on the carbon schemes and the biodiversity credits. I'm not sure if we can press a button there and see if we've got anything under either of those two categories. Have we got anything under the carbon scheme? Here we go. Let's see. It's live, so, you know, there's all sorts of... Oh, there we go. We've got one project under the carbon schemes. So arguably, these schemes could be the entry point into the bigger financial blended market, because we need to learn as conservationists how to deal with this different world. And arguably, carbon credits are the most advanced part of it. But anybody who's tried to operate in that space will tell you that even if all the tools are there, if the jigsaw puzzle pieces are complete, it's still not easy. There are pitfalls, there are difficulties. We need the building blocks. The building blocks are certification, and this is all set out actually in the roadmap to biodiversity, to the nature credit scheme. We need the certification process. Investors need to have confidence that that certification process is transparent, is operational, and will not in any way reflect upon their own credibility. It needs to be robust, and they need to build trust. One such scheme is the peatland code. Some of you will maybe have heard about that. I'll talk a little bit more about operationally how that works in a minute. We need a credible regulatory body to oversee the certification and accreditation process. That also works towards transparency. And we need a credit scheme that fairly rewards the landowner or the farmer or the forester. What do I mean fairly rewards? Well, if the rewards that they're going to get through the credit scheme are less than they would get through some other more damaging practice that is also financed, arguably, by public finances, then they're going to go that route. Because nobody that I'm aware of thinks that going down the route of credits is easy. It's not, it's difficult. It's a hard choice. So there has to be a fairness and an equitability about the pricing scheme. And from what I've seen of biodiversity credits at the moment, they're even lower in the marketplace than carbon credits. So what are the operational pitfalls around these schemes? It's really hard not to get involved in a race to the bottom. What do I mean by that? Well, certainly operating the peatland code, because of the way that the code is established, one of the difficulties is that you get more money the more degraded your system is. So where is the incentive for a landowner or a farmer to keep a habitat in good condition if they're going to get more money from a degraded ecosystem? And we are seeing this operationally, that people are allowing their systems to become degraded so they get more money to repair them. There's no payment within the scheme at the moment for maintaining good quality habitat. If you've got a really good quality habitat, you cannot get carbon credit scheme payments because you're not restoring anything. That's a fault in the system because, again, that leads to degradation. And another kind of issue with the scheme is, when do you get paid? Well, the carbon credit system runs to 2050. Nobody in their right mind is going to do something now for which they get paid in 2050. You would not expect it. It is not reasonable. And there is no mechanism at the moment for any kind of moderation there. So these are pitfalls that we need to overcome in order to make these schemes truly operational. And they can be overcome, and they are being overcome. So in terms of the nature credits, which are way behind the carbon credits in their terms of evolution, these are the kinds of lessons that we need to learn to take forward into those schemes. So the EU roadmap, it's ambitious. The timetable is 2025 to 2027 for the nature credits. The safeguards are being put in place, the building blocks are being formed, but let's not fool ourselves. To operate the system is going to take a lot more effort and a lot more willingness on the part of practitioners to embrace these systems. It's not going to be easy, but we are all passionate about nature. And practitioners, we need to be at the heart of these discussions because we are the people that are going to be implementing the schemes. We've got a precious and a very valuable commodity. Let's remember that. We're calling the shots. We've got the commodity. We've got the saleable item. And we have no choice, I think, but to embrace these new financial instruments to have any chance, and a real chance, of halting the decline in biodiversity and restoring our environments to a favourable condition. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to me, a non-financial expert. If I've made any slips, they are my own. Please do come and join me in the session this afternoon. We'll be in that room over there. I'm going to be ably assisted by the Life Cork project and by a Latvian colleague on biodiversity credits in Latvia. So it's going to be quite exciting. It's going to be interactive. Come to us with your stories and we will explore together a way possible forward. Thank you very much for listening to me and enjoy the rest of your day.